Welcome to this Infosecurity Europe podcast.
Hi everyone, I'm Heidi Shey, Principal Analyst with Forrester Research. As an industry analyst, what I do, is I conduct research and I share those learnings with others. That's it at its very basic form. My research focuses primarily on topics like data security, privacy, and in order to do this type of research, I end up talking to a lot of different people, enterprise security teams and their leaders about the challenges that they face. I also talk to security product vendors about what they're bringing to market, what's on their roadmap and how they're seeing the world today and what their customers are also telling them. Oftentimes, I feel like I function as part advisor, perhaps part therapist as well. And I look for patterns, I look for trends, I share best practices with people, and I help to advise them on strategy and then move forward. There's just always something new to learn. One question leads to another. It's like this thread that you keep unraveling, and you find new threads and you keep going from there. So the change, that's constant, and I really like that a lot. It's also, there's no typical day as an industry analyst, which tends to keep things fresh. So I could have one day where I spend it back to back, 2-hour demos of products with security vendors just to learn how the product works. I have an opportunity to ask them questions about their roadmap, their strategy, and then I might have another day where I spend, let's say, all morning on calls with CISOs, security architects, data governance managers, advising them on a number of different types of topics, whether that's talking about best practices for data discovery, classification, giving recommendations about tools that can support, let's say, data de-identification, or talking to people about use cases for technologies like homomorphic encryption. And then I could then look at the afternoon and be planning and prepping for participating on a panel at an event, or planning to kick off some new research on a topic like data masking tools. It was a complete accident. I did not set out to go into cybersecurity. What happened was I kept following and doing what I found interesting. At times I felt like my job title didn't quite reflect the work that I was doing, but it was fun, and I did it for the opportunity to grow and to learn. I kind of function on this belief that everything that we do, all of the experiences that we have, it adds up to something, even though we may not see it at the time. So my background was not in technology at all, and certainly not cyber or information security in any way. It was actually in economics and art. It's a studio art, so painting, a bit of sculpture. That was what I was primarily focused on. I just felt like it was a useful way to learn how to communicate ideas and concepts to other people. And that's something that I still apply today. So to some, they might say that's a barrier, but I kind of like to think of it as a strength, because I feel like we need to recognize what we're able to bring to the table and what may be unique to us in our own experiences. I think one of the first things you learn, or that you think about in that type of degree, is that you learn you can't always trust your eyes, or you can't always trust your brain. What you're seeing may not actually be what you think you're seeing, so you have to think a bit about what you're observing. I guess I'd say imposter syndrome. And it was a challenge until I realized that everyone else has it too. So I try not to self-select myself out of opportunities because of that, to actually tell myself I need to give myself a chance when it comes to trying something new, or maybe pushing myself out of my comfort zone. That's a way for me to define for myself what I might consider to be success and growth, but on my own terms for my own career. So it's more about benchmarking against myself and not others, and recognizing that it's okay to not have the answer, to say, I don't know, or I'm not sure, and to go forward and learn from that. I guess I never really thought of it as a challenge, perhaps in the traditional sense. I went to a women's college, so I feel like that in itself was a bit of a unique experience, and feeling like I had that type of community behind me, And that type of support, I think, was a valuable thing going into the workforce. And I was also very fortunate that even early on, I found a lot of people who were willing to mentor me and to, in a sense, sponsor me for different types of opportunities throughout my career. I think it's important to stay hungry for the chance to grow and to keep learning, to seek out what's available to you in terms of resources or opportunities, because there's so many ways to do that today. It's not just about sitting in a classroom or taking a test to get some type of certification in order to get a new skill. There's many, many more ways to do that. And to recognize that, detours through this journey, it's okay, it's fine, because things may not go exactly like you've envisioned. Life happens, and you have your own story to tell and dots to connect based on your own life and your work experiences. But the important thing is, if you don't see that for yourself to begin with, it makes it very challenging to figure out how to communicate that to others. I think in some ways it hasn't had that much of a change. I mean, even before the pandemic, my own team we were scattered across different places, different geographies. We had some team members who were already working remote. And then the pandemic came along and we're all working remotely now. I think some of the changes that have happened throughout the year is that we've increased the amount of remote training opportunities for staff. We've also managed to hire 2 new people for the team. So they've onboarded, they've started remotely as well. I think the way that we were already trying to recruit, a lot of that was already online through different channels of networking. So that didn't change things too much. And we felt like it was a year where there was a lot of movement. People were looking for new opportunities and receptive to checking out different types of roles. Another change that the pandemic brought about was, I think it brought us all closer together as a team. It was a strong culture, I feel like, that we had to begin with. And this just helped to make it almost even stronger. We had a daily standing, what we called it, coffee time on our calendars, where you could join in if you wanted to. It was open discussion. We could talk about work topics. It could talk about personal life. Anything really went. We could complain, we could vent. It was a safe space to talk about how we were feeling about the state of the world. Sometimes we played trivia games or introduced our spouses and kids and pets to each other. So this pandemic was a shared experience. The challenges of it all was a shared experience. And I feel like we really rose up to support each other. I don't know if it's necessarily a specific skill set. I think what we really need to happen as an industry is rethinking how we think about hiring and recruiting and what that candidate for that role looks like. And what I mean by that is really expanding our view, like looking at non-traditional backgrounds for different types of roles, not thinking that a candidate has to fit into a specific mold in order to be in that type of role. So I would encourage people who are trying to hire for their teams to look at, well, what is it that you really need in terms of the skills? What is something that you could train someone up to do versus what might you want them to already come in with, and being a bit more flexible about both sides of that equation, because people are capable of learning new things. And if you're looking for that one candidate who has everything already, that can really narrow down the field and make it more difficult to recruit.
Thank you for listening to this Infosecurity Europe podcast.